Hey friends, I am in Greenland. This island is as large as half of the EU, yet has fewer residents than a mid-sized city. Trump wants to obtain its natural resources, but Greenland has other treasures too. We'll see breathtaking sights, icebergs, whales, cozy, colorful houses, and much more. I'll tell you tons of fascinating stories about the atomic bomb lost in the ice, local legends, and a horrifying story of the sterilization of the indigenous population. In short, get ready for lots of adventures. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. And now let's explore together. What makes Greenland so special? Rare earth metals, a unique culture, or breathtaking nature? I never imagined it could be so beautiful. Giant gray marble-like rocks float in the ocean. Okay, you were the mayor of the town, right? What's going on with the roads? The toilet is tied down with stones. The temperature is a little above zero, but the child is swimming. Are you okay? No. No? What do you think about Donald Trump?
Cool.
This is Nuuk, the capital of Greenland. Roughly 20,000 people live here. Most of the island's life is concentrated here. It's politics, culture, and fishing. It's all concentrated on a small cape. By the way, the word Nuuk means cape. Once you leave the city, the roads end. There, the tundra, polar bears, and ancient glaciers begin. The only way to get to the capital is by plane or boat. Greenland is a perfect place to feel like you're at the end of civilization. All right, friends, don't stop me now. The best way to see the city? Run through it. That's why today, bright and early, I woke up at 6 a.m. Thank God it was already light. I went for a run in the capital city, Nuuk. Empty, quiet, blissful. I'm the only one here. It's a bit freezing. But I'll warm up soon. Overall, friends, as you can see, it all looks pretty sad. But very soon, I'll show you some real beauty too. Make sure to watch this video to the end, because Greenland is so much more than just bleak towns. There are also icebergs, glaciers, and snow-white deserts. However, one question comes to mind. How on earth can this place be called Greenland? It's not green at all. Ice covers about 80% of the island. The ice sheet here spans nearly 2 million square kilometers. So where does this name come from? Basically, it's all about marketing. Well, almost. At the end of the 10th century, the Viking Eric the Red was exiled from Iceland. He sailed to Greenland and realized that he could earn quite a bit trading walrus tusks. Eric established a settlement and started hunting, but he needed family and friends to hunt and survive. Eric had to get more Vikings to join him. That's why he sailed back to Iceland to promote the new island. There's a theory that back in his time, Greenland was indeed greener than today, but hardly by much. Probably Eric just dressed up the truth. Nevertheless, it worked, and the Vikings held on here until the 15th century. In the end, people just got used to calling it Greenland. By local standards, you could call them high-rises. But in terms of comfort, you can see there's no luxury at all. Plain yachts completely paved over. In the north, beauty takes a back seat. And of course, the dirty, ruined road, as usual. You probably know that Greenland belongs to Denmark. Let me explain to you how it came to be. Back in the 13th century, the local Vikings pledged allegiance to the Norwegian king. 100 years later, Norway and Denmark united. A lot has changed in Europe since then, but what's important to us is that Greenland has been Danish ever since. The thing is, the Danes couldn't care less of the frozen island until the 18th century. They didn't even know that the Vikings, who had pledged allegiance to the crown, had died out. But in 1721, someone finally remembered the island. Stationing a large garrison in a remote colony was expensive, but building a church would have been easier. Besides, converting pagans to Christianity was all the rage. So Denmark sent missionary Hans Egede to Greenland. He landed near the site of the future Nuuk. Egede planned to teach the Vikings about the Bible, but all he found were 12 Inuit families. But he couldn't just turn around and leave. So he set out to convert the native Greenlanders. The entire process involved not only harsh persecution of shamanism, but also some awkward misunderstandings. For example, when Egede showed the locals a picture of the Christian god, they replied Asune. Egede believed it was the Inuit word for God. However, today's sources suggest it was the word Asuki, which means I don't know. Nevertheless, the Danes managed to make Christianity the dominant religion on the island and slowly take back full control of the colony. Today, 90% of Greenlanders consider themselves Lutherans. But no matter how hard the colonizers tried, they couldn't get rid of the local shamanism. Just like Greenland's desire for independence, while I'm running here, you can take a look. At the outskirts of Nuuk, this is a kindergarten. Here, some houses start to appear. I guess this isn't the best housing. There are already sidewalks here. Some of them can even serve as bike lanes. At the same time, here we see a bus stop. And in the distance, there are new projects, like this one on the right. Its colors remind me of a Google headquarters. Pay attention to the colors of the local houses. As I wrap up my run, I'll tell you why they're so bright. Interestingly, it's not just a design choice. In the 18th century, the Danes started building their settlements here, but local Inuit could neither speak nor write Danish. That's why each color was assigned its particular meaning. Churches and shops were painted red. In a yellow house, you could find a doctor. Police stations were colored black. Fishermen sold their catch to the blue houses, where the fish factories were located. Of course, there's no need for that now, and you can paint your house any color, like yellow or blue. But first, you need approval for your color from the administration. So you can't paint it with polka dots to keep within the existing design rules. Well, it looks really beautiful, especially with this dark gray landscape in the background. All right, friends, let's keep running. I love you all so much. Don't forget to like this video. And remember, keep moving forward. Stop sadness. Wishing you all fluffy feet, my friends. Love you all. Run. Run. One of the most important and painful issues for Greenlanders is independence. I'll come back to this question. I'll explain how they view their independence and whether the island has a chance to become a sovereign state. But first, let's talk about why Danish citizenship isn't all that attractive. The reason for this can be found in a recent story. Look at this birth rate chart in Greenland. Here we can see a striking drop, as if a war or a famine had taken place in the 1970s. Well, actually, nothing like that happened. Denmark simply decided to carry out a minor, unnoticed genocide. In 1953, Greenland changed its status. Before that, it was just a Danish colony, but then it became a full-fledged administrative unit. To bring the former colony on a par with the rest of Denmark, a series of reforms were introduced, particularly in healthcare. This led to a sharp drop in child mortality. Over 15 years, the number of live births increased by 80%. In fact, it was a true demographic boom. And as the population grew, Denmark had to provide more subsidies. For example, in 1960, Denmark provided Greenland with 140 million Danish kroner. And in 1965, it was already 368 million. Then the Danish authorities got scared and decided to slow down the birth rate. To do this, they began providing Inuit girls and women intrauterine devices. Of course, the women weren't informed. 13-year-old girls were invited for a routine gynecological checkup, but left with an IUD. Between 1966 and 1970, this reckless experiment victimized more than 4,500 women. Afterwards, the authorities simply stopped monitoring IUDs. All this went on until the mid-1970s, so the exact number of victims is unknown. The consequences were horrifying. Many people believed they were infertile. Then, sometime in the 1990s, they found out, by chance, during a checkup that they had an IUD. But falling birth rates weren't the only problem. Because of getting an IUD so young, many girls faced health complications, a lot from heavy bleeding and ongoing pain to infections and actual permanent infertility. And here comes the most unbelievable fact in the story. Guess which year the general public found out about this? In 2022? Before that, only a few people talked about birth control, and some politicians hinted at it, but the issue was never seriously studied. In 2022, the Danish radio station Denmark Radio released an investigation. Journalists collected archival documents and lots of evidence. For the first time, this podcast turned a semi-mythical story into a documented fact. After that, Greenland and Denmark agreed on a joint investigation. It should be completed this year. I hope all victims get compensation. I don't know, though, how one could compensate for such a terrible crime. Building even 10 such buildings is hardly enough to make up for Denmark's guilt. But they try. This is a building of cultural center in Nuuk. Its architecture is inspired by the form of waves and the northern lights. Inside it looks quite attractive too. Basically, it's a typical story. Everything's falling apart, and then, apparently some grant or money from Denmark shows up. And suddenly, there appears some pretty nice and interesting infrastructure. I went all the way to Denmark to meet Ole Jørgen, a Greenlandic researcher of the North, educator and actor. He's very experienced in expeditions. For example, in 2007, he traveled 500 kilometers across the Greenland ice sheet by dog sled. In 2009, he again went by dog sled from northern Canada to the North Pole. He's also interested in anthropology and does social work. Oli told me how the relations between Denmark and Greenland were changing.
Naughty enough to say, look down on us, shifted just like that. And so today they say, oh yeah, we should have been using. That's where it is right now. We'll see what happens from there.
My guide in Nuuk, Dan Epson, shared his opinion with me.
I don't know. I can't trust him. You know, he only works for the U.S. and himself. He's not coming to Greenland to help Greenlanders. So that's my opinion. I'm happy with the relationship we have with Denmark. So my father was Danish and my mother is native Greenlandic. So I have both cultures, and I don't want to lose that. But we want to trade with the Americans if they want to trade with us, but they cannot own us or buy us.
Friends, if you happen to find yourself in Greenland and you're looking for adrenaline and something unusual, special and unforgettable, and you're already bored with all the standard activities like icebergs, fishing and nature watching, you can take a cap like this. Go meet the locals. Basically, you can just go downstairs from my hotel to the 24-hour liquor store. And yes, there you're gonna have some fun. Here are some local drinkers.
Hi, how are you? Good? Russia, Russia.
Bye, good luck. All right, take care. Here, even the wind brings the smell of kizil, the Russian cognac. Oh, this familiar smell takes me back, smells like home. Well, as I said, here's a liquor store. And you can actually hang out here a bit. If you're feeling overly healthy, put on the cap and go talk to the local guys. To see the icebergs, I traveled to another town called Ilulissat. Nuuk surprised me with an unexpected farewell. Just imagine, guys. Today I woke up at 6 a.m., partly because there was a lot of noise outside. I looked out the window and saw some oddly dressed people walking down the street. At first, I thought some party from yesterday was still going on, but it turned out, as my taxi driver explained, today the locals are celebrating their prom, so at 5 a.m. they begin walking, making noise, and waking their teachers up. This is the local tradition for graduating students. That is, in our countries, they party, dance, and drink alcohol, but here in Greenland, it's a whole different story. They get at 5 a.m. and literally wake the teachers up. Just like that. They dress up in colorful costumes, just like at a carnival. They actually wear white protective suits, like the ones used back in the COVID days. They spray paint them with different colors, and then brightly dressed and noisy. They walk around the streets of Nuuk, just like today. What a curious tradition. What about me? I would never ever in my life wake up at 5 a.m. to get back at my teachers. I'm in Ilulissat, the third largest city in Greenland. By the way, its name literally means icebergs. And that makes perfect sense. Because 10% of all Greenland's icebergs are created right here, in this very spot. They are released into the sea by the most active glacier in the northern hemisphere called Sermekkujalik. Each year, 35 billion tons of ice break off from it. People say that when it happens, it can be heard for kilometers and sounds like explosions or an earthquake. The local fjord is protected by UNESCO, and it's so important for climate change research that it's even monitored from NASA satellites. I came here not only to see these amazing icebergs, but also to meet the former mayor of Ilulissat. I used to do lots of videos talking to mayors, and today I'll do it again. We'll walk around and discuss how to plan and organize different urban spaces in such extreme conditions. The former mayor's name is Palle Jamariason. He spent 28 years in politics and was responsible not only for Ilulissat, but also for the northern settlements of the island. Today he works as a guide, giving tours of the city. He claims to know every single resident here personally. This is one of the busiest harbors in Greenland. It's because of all these fishermen. Do you see these small boats? These are fishing boats. And do they all work for themselves? Yes, all of them, but here you can also find big boats and ships. So this harbor works around the clock. In the summer, there is always someone here, 24/7. It's like New York. You can work here 24 hours because it's light all the time. Why sleep if you can make money? Okay, you were the mayor, right? What's wrong with the roads? All the money we make here, we also have to spend on the north of Greenland. A lot of money goes there. We try to repair our roads every year, but the ice ruins them again. So bad weather is the problem? Yes. In Russia, we also have problems with bad roads, and our officials always blame the weather. Exactly, that's right. It's a political excuse. We say the same. Together with Palle Jamariason, I took a boat to see the icebergs. Look, friends, can you see these icebergs? They broke off from the local glacier. There's a theory that the most famous iceberg, which entered the sea over 100 years ago, comes from here. It happened in 1909. The same year, construction of the ship it would later collide with began. For 3 years, the iceberg was floating on the sea. It drifted along the west coast of Greenland and got caught in the Labrador Current. On April 14, 2012, it ended up on a shipping lane in the Atlantic. You can probably guess which ship it sank. Yes, maybe the Titanic's killer was born right here in Ilulissat. The takeaway is that all processes on Earth are interconnected. Even if you live far from Greenland, an iceberg coming from here could one day change your life, and not for the better. But right now, we can truly enjoy these icebergs. Honestly, I've never seen such huge icebergs. This close, it's absolutely amazing, guys. Huge blocks, white and blue, gray and marble-like, float in the ocean. Just look at this. Out in the sea, in these bays. On a little boat, you feel so small. Just like a grain of sand, tiny and invisible, compared to these giants. It's very cool. I've never in my life seen icebergs this close. You need a boat to be able to move through the icebergs. In fact, a boat can be even more useful than a car here. If you have a boat, you can do whatever you want. But isn't it expensive? How much is the fuel for a boat like this? About 6 Danish kroner per liter. It's regular petrol, right? Yes, in Greenland it's not that expensive. Fuel taxes are low here. In Denmark you'd pay about 15 kroner, but here it costs only 6. You've probably heard that icebergs break off and that it's very bad. But it's difficult to understand without some numbers. Every hour, Greenland loses 30 million tons of ice. Yes, every hour. Scientists from NASA proved it a year and a half ago. They analyzed more than 200,000 glacier observations between 1985 and 2022 using artificial intelligence. The outcome was alarming. The mass of ice lost by Greenland during this period was underestimated by 20%. New icebergs keep breaking off from the glaciers, and this raises the sea level. Imagine a glass where you're constantly throwing ice cubes in. If you put too many in, the liquid will definitely spill out. This is what's happening here. It's still not enough to change sea levels dramatically, yet it brings other problems. A large amount of fresh water flows into the ocean, and this affects the currents, in particular the Gulf Stream. It carries heat from the equator to the northern hemisphere. Along with the warm water, a variety of nutrients flow, essential for sea creatures. If the current gets disrupted, the whole ecosystem will be affected, and this might have catastrophic consequences. At the very least, herring might become a delicacy. We'll come back to the glaciers melting later. But for now, let's take a look at life in a small village in Greenland. I arrived in the village of Okatsut. The Dutch also call it Red Bay. In the 18th century, it was a trading post for Dutch whalers. Since killed whales were brought and butchered here, the water would turn red. That's how it got the name Red Bay. People say that on a calm day. You can still see the whale bones on the bottom. Right now, only 25 to 30 people live permanently in this tiny village. Most of them are fishers. They also have a store, a hotel, a restaurant, and even a small church. By the way, the church is used as a school for local children. Throughout Greenland, there are lots of villages like this. So let's take a look at one of these typical tiny villages. And most importantly, at how people live here. Interestingly, this place is full of life. It's really busy here because boats keep coming in and out. They deliver fish to a small local fish factory. So people here have their own economy and a very active, busy life. Interestingly, there is no pier, only ice. I'm not sure how thick it is, but let's hope it doesn't break. I've just spotted a small crab here, I think. Do you live here? Yes, I do. How long? Oh, 50 years. Have you been to Denmark or other places? Yes, I've been to Europe. I've also been to the US. Oh, wow, you traveled to America. What do you think about it? Things are bad there. Why? There, I've seen an enormous gap between the poor and the rich. What do you think about Trump and his plan to buy Greenland? No thanks. What if he says Greenland becomes part of the US? Greenland is not for sale. Okay, what do you think about Trump's idea? I think the same, by no means. And what if you got $1 million for it? Would you agree to become part of the United States and get a US passport? No, we want to be independent. We want to be ourselves. We don't want to be part of either the US or Denmark. We're not going to trade one ruler for another. That's why we said no to the US and want to separate from Denmark. Actually, the reason behind Trump's idea to buy Greenland is the melting ice. It's exactly due to the melting ice that access to mineral resources is opening up. Suddenly, the island caught everyone's attention, the USA, the European Union, and China. And each of them wants to get permission to extract lithium, neodymium, zirconium, and other industrially important metals. This is also a chance for Greenland itself. Locals have long sought economic independence from Denmark. It seems that developing mines could bring it closer. But there are some nuances. Firstly, even though Greenland issues permits for exploration, actual mining won't start soon. A few mines could open in 10-15 years, but even they won't generate enough money to give up Danish subsidies. The process is slow because it requires building infrastructure, plants, and bringing in workers. The local population simply won't be enough. Second, intensive mining could lead to ecological problems. For each ton of extracted metals, up to 2,000 tons of toxic waste are produced. and they need to be disposed. If disposal is handled poorly and toxic waste leaks into the ocean, it could seriously damage the fishing industry, which remains the most important sector in Greenland. In general, experts agree that it's better not to rush, but to carefully choose the best offers and strictly monitor extraction. Of course, this will delay the long-awaited independence, but in the long term, it will protect the island from disaster. This is how the village looks like. Overall, it's pretty clean, tidy and nice with a view of the icebergs. This is a year-round view. Now I'm at the stadium, it's a soccer field. Exactly. There are the goalposts. Exactly. They even have a stage for some community events. And some barbecue grills. You can throw a party. This lovely village even has a bench where you can sit and enjoy the scenery. Look around. Such beautiful scenery. But there's plenty to see here.
And this green building, what is it?
The People's House is owned by the municipality. It's a People's House.
It's Lukoil, a Russian oil company. This is the post office. And here we can see the fish factory. Since the locals are engaged in fishing, they were recently provided with their own fish factory, even in such a small village of 30 people. This is how the fish are delivered on a quad bike. They tie sleds to the quad bike, then they lift the fish like this. And this is used instead of a trash can. The trash is simply put into this huge bag. Later, it's apparently transported somewhere. It goes either to Nuuk or to a recycling plant, although I don't know if they actually have one. Or maybe they even take it abroad. Right now, 6 employees are working here. 5 Filipinos and 1 local. Why do you have more Filipinos than locals here? Well, of course, we also start using local resources. Unfortunately, Greenlanders don't take this work very seriously. What's the monthly or yearly salary here? How much you can earn here? It depends on the working hours, but the pay is good. In Russia, good pay is about $2,000. What about here? The workers have a contract with the trade union. When they work long hours, the salary can exceed 10,000 Danish kroner after taxes. That's for 2 weeks. How long have you lived here? We moved here in 1974. Yes, in 1974. Do you like this place? Of course. Why don't you move to a bigger city? No. Why? Cities are too big. On our way back to the boat for Ilulissat, Paley told me more about local salaries. If you work at the factory, your salary is set by the government and the union of the worker. And that's exactly what you get paid. And how much is it? It's about 120 Danish kroner per hour. Everything depends on the working hours. The company also makes pension contributions. The retirement age here is 67. I see, 67. So how much is the pension? Around 10,000 Danish kroner a month. And this is the sum after taxes. So you have to pay taxes even on your pension? Yes. Is 10,000 kroner enough to live on? No. And how do you get by? You know, looking at the prices, we have to stick to the cheapest products at the shops. So you can't really afford to travel or buy good food. It's going to be very difficult if you live only on your pension. You probably won't be able to travel. But if you are retired and you want to fly with Air Greenland or buy ferry tickets, pensioners get a 50% discount. Towns and villages are spread all along Greenland's coast, but in the recent years there have been fewer and fewer people in the north. They leave for the south as northern villages become more isolated. Reaching them was always tough in summer, but now it's also difficult in autumn and even winter. The reason for that is glacier melting. Back in the 80s, the ice was firm enough for traveling by dog sled by mid-October. By then you could already go hunting or travel to other villages. Today, the ice doesn't set until the middle of December. Of course, people could go by plane, but it's too costly. For example, in summer, a one-way ticket from the western town, Kangerlussuaq, to the northern village Qaanaaq starts at $1,000. People in Qaanaaq just can't afford that. Besides isolation, another problem is natural disasters. Sometimes icebergs breaking off from glaciers are so huge that they can cause a tsunami. For example, in 2017, one of them washed away 11 houses and killed 4 people. Residents of the village Nuuk and the nearby Ilulissat were evacuated. These are Western settlements, but the risk is growing for all coastal residents. Such disasters will occur more often, with more destructive consequences. Under this scenario, it's safer not to be in the north, cut off from the rest of civilization. We usually think of people moving south to find warmth. But in Greenland, they move to the southern part of the island to escape it. The dog sledding season usually begins in January. It generally lasts until mid-April. It depends on how much snow there is. About 20 years ago, the season started much earlier. Because of the global climate change, the season has shifted completely. Nowadays, storms are much stronger and less predictable. At the beginning of July, another incident occurred, showing how dangerous life in the northern part of the island can be. In the village of Ilulissat, a huge iceberg drifted to the coast. Just look at this massive block of ice. Authorities are seriously concerned it might crash into the shore. Falling chunks of ice are unlikely to cause much damage, but a collision could cause strong waves that might sweep away half the houses. The fishing factory by the coast has closed, and the local shop limits the number of customers. If a tsunami occurs while people are waiting in line, some will get injured in the crowd. For now, the iceberg is drifting near the shore, attracting photographers. Hopefully the winds will push it back out to sea, and no one will get hurt. Now we are here, where everyday local life unfolds, along with the barking. I don't know if you can hear it. Well, there are countless dogs here. As you can imagine, they are anything but quiet. This is an interesting story. Right over there on the hill. You can see many tiny houses where people live. And this is where the dogs live. The puppies just run around freely, while adult dogs are kept on leashes. And there are hundreds of them. I really see a lot of them. Some dogs start noticing me. Big dogs are leashed, and the little puppies are wandering around like that. This is a Greenland Husky. That's how it is. This whole huge area is for the dogs. Oops. So cute. Adorable. Too small to bark. In the debate between cat and dog lovers, Greenlanders clearly side with the dogs. Dog sledding is a traditional way of getting around the ice-covered island. Of course, the number of sled dogs is going down. 20 years ago, there were 20,000 of them, and now just about 13. But this is still a lot. You probably know the main breed here, the Husky. In some areas, even bringing in other breeds is banned, to preserve the genetic heritage of Greenland dogs. Sleds are mainly used by hunters, and of course by tourists, but not only. Dog sleds are also used by the military. The Serious Dog Sled Patrol monitors northeastern Greenland. This patrol was established during World War II. When the Germans built secret weather stations on the eastern coast, the dog patrol tracked Nazis and even took part in battles. Seizing these stations helped the Allies win the Battle of the Atlantic. Even now, Sirius patrols the coastline. It's an elite military unit of 12 people. I'm not sure who they are guarding the coast from, but they actively assist scientific expeditions. I must say that not all Greenland dogs are happy with this job. They are often kept on chains, poorly fed, and not given the freedom they need. In 2014, the police uncovered a starving pack of sled dogs, causing a major scandal. Many of them had already starved to death, and the remaining 19 had to be euthanized. It was impossible to save them. This doesn't happen everywhere, but you never know who will treat a dog kindly and who won't. How much does one dog cost? For example, if I want to buy this one, the price is around 1,000 Danish kroner, but the dog must be taken out of the area and can't be returned. I got to explore one of the many dog towns in Greenland.
How many dogs live here in this area?
In the whole dog town, we have between 800 and 1,000 dogs in total. And you can see each house, you see that every dog owner have their own house, and then the dogs they are put around. So yeah, and it's really different how many dogs you have. Some have like 6 dogs, some have 10.
Do I need to rent a land here if I want to sell it? Or
yeah, you can't just put dogs out here. You need to go to municipality and apply for a dog spot. And then every year you pay a small amount. It's mostly just a symbolic amount. That's so that you are renting the spot for your dogs.
How many dogs does one family usually have?
Sometimes they only have 6, and sometimes they have 20, and then they have like 2 dog teams, but around 10 dogs.
They're very friendly, so just push them down.
So fight the way to the top. That's why we have the dog team separately. We can't mix the dogs because then they get confused and they don't know suddenly where do I belong in the hierarchy. So that's why they have individual teams, and the dogs they are put to 10, as you can see, but we always put them like together 2 and 2, so they have company. So they run around loose until they are 6 months, and then they will be put to 10. So they are enjoying the last 2 weeks of freedom, and then we will put them to 10. And also
spend the rest of their life on a chain?
Yeah, they will. If we had all the dogs loose, it will be massacre, I would say almost. Chaotic, and all the dogs will fight from the other ones. And it will be blood everywhere. The closest relative the Greenlandic sled dog have is the wolf. So that it's really a different kind of dog than just a normal petting dog we have at home. These dogs, they are bred to pull, and they are bred to be a working animal. It's not a pet you bring inside. If you bring them inside, they will get too hot and they will not feel confident. They like to stay outside and they like to work. Wait. Yeah.
And our dogs are very used to
Our dogs got used to tourists.
That's also like,
This is what makes them special.
Yeah. Hi. Svenska. Hi.
How do you train them?
Get them in shape again. And the small puppies, when they are around 6 months, we also start to run them in front of the sled. In the beginning, they are just running around loose, and they try to find out what are the other dogs doing and kind of get the hang of it. And if they have been running loose a couple of times, we'll put them on the harness, and then they will get a long line so they can jump between all the other dogs and find the place where they belong in this kind of dog team. And then over time, when they are about 1 year old, they pretty much get the hang of it, and they are good and strong pulling dogs in front of the sled. And in summertime, we try to keep the dogs fit and active so they don't get bored. So actually in front of the ATV, just like we put them in front of the sled, we put the dogs in front of the ATV and try to keep them fit. Otherwise, we bring dogs hiking, so they, just for company and fun, it's really nice, and they really enjoy to go out in the backcountry just hiking. Otherwise, we have just over there on the other side of the town, we have some small islands You can spot one over there. And the dogs, during summertime, sometimes the owners put the dogs on those small islands, then only one dog team on each island, and then the dogs can run around loose and have some kind of summer vacation.
Puppies are happily running around the puddles, but in spring in Ilulissat, it's not just dogs. Unexpectedly, children do it too. The snow is still on the ground, and the temperature is just above zero. However, I see a child swimming. One child is swimming. What's going on here?
Why he swim here?
No.
Are you okay? No?
I want to try it, if it's cold.
There's poop inside.
Why he swim?
Huh?
Why he swim here?
I don't know.
What do you think about Donald Trump?
It's not.
Yeah, he's a
He's a little boy enjoying himself. The first warm day in the spring here.
So this weather, it's warm.
It's 2 degrees, plus 2 degrees.
It's plus 2 degrees. It's not warm for swimming in puddle.
Yeah.
Okay.
As it often happens, in northern or hard-to-reach areas like this, there's a lot of trash here. They just don't take it away because it's expensive and complicated. That's why old appliances or even cars can just rust in the yard. Here are also some houses. They are all very simple. There are no frills, no luxury. To be honest, I haven't seen yet any really beautiful, wealthy houses. The only decent building here is the hotel. Just so you know, this is the third largest city here. This is how it looks like. On the one hand, this contrast is just amazing. Because on one side, you have this beautiful view of all these bays. And the icebergs, which you can see all year round. White and massive, looking like fantastic creatures, or like clouds, like sea clouds. It makes me so excited, especially when you get up closer in a little boat. It's amazing. Trust me, no photo or video can give you the feeling of being so close to them. Everywhere you look, there are snowy peaks or icebergs. It's so beautiful, nature is just incredible. But on the other hand, you also see these half-abandoned buildings. Very poor houses and huge prices. If you got $1 million, would you agree that Greenland becomes part of the US? I'll give you $1 million. We're not going to become part of America. We'll stay independent. No way, no way. We want to be independent. Thank you. Hello, can I ask you a question? This man is from Russia. He travels and interviews people. Tell me, if you got $1 million, would you agree to Greenland joining the US? No. Nope. No, no, no! What do you think about Donald Trump? I don't know what to say. He can't answer because he's asking if we were given $1 million. Would we agree with Trump and join the US? Money isn't as important as people make it out to be. But that's $1 million. Are you sure? And you'll get American passports. No. No? Thank you.
During Barack Obama, if he said that he wants to buy Greenland, I mean, there would be maybe a good chance that people maybe will accept the offer, because we know he's a good man. And the way Trump, the way he uses words about like buying Greenland, as if it was like an object.
Olaf Jürgen took many influential people on dog sled rides. For example, the Prince of Monaco. In 2015, he was contacted by the eldest son of Donald Trump. When we first met, Donald Trump Jr. was very polite. We chatted for about 30 minutes. By then, I already knew something about Trump. I'd been to New York several times and seen Trump Tower and all the other Trump stuff. But I didn't really think about who he was. But then I found out that he was running for president, and I realized that I'd met his eldest son, the one who wanted to hunt in Greenland. He dreamed of hunting muskox, and just a month later his father announced that he wanted to become president. Who knows, maybe it was Trump Jr.'s trip that gave his dad the idea to buy Greenland. But their family doesn't understand the people who live on this island. It was quite obvious during Trump Jr.'s visit a few months ago. It happened in 2015.
And it was like perceived that he did it in a very rude manner. Well, for Americans, he did it in a very polite manner. He came and introduced himself. He said, my daddy, this and that. But for Greenlanders, who are very, who share underestimation culture, which means when they, let's say a hunter kills a big polar bear, and he comes back to the village, and people ask him, what did you get? He would say, oh, just nothing, a small little mouse, you know, nothing to talk about. And they don't talk in loud voices. They don't ever raise their voices. And he came and bombastically started talking, I'm Donald Trump and my daddy and this and that. And that was perceived as something.
Overall, the US and Greenland share a long history, including some very strange stories. One of them is Project Iceworm. Are you already getting that James Bond spy movie vibe? In 1959, the US decided to use Greenland to station nuclear weapons. First of all, flying to Moscow from here was shorter than from New York. Second, the ice perfectly hid the military bases from Soviet spies. The missile silos would quickly get covered in snow, making them invisible from the air. There was just one catch. Denmark didn't mind the US military bases, but it was against nuclear bombs. The Danes didn't really want to be in the crossfire if the US and USSR went to nuclear war. So the Americans told Denmark that they were just building a research station deep in the ice. Supposedly to study the movement of glaciers, they dug 21 tunnels with a total length of 3,000 meters. In total, 200 people lived there. It had everything: housing, storage, a library, cinemas, even a church. I wonder if their priests blessed the weapons of mass destruction. Ironically, the only thing Iceworm managed to do was studying glacier movements more closely. The ice moved faster than expected. Because of that, cracks formed in walls and ceilings, and the entire base was powered by a small nuclear reactor. The Americans didn't want to test what would happen if the roof collapsed. In 1963, the reactor was dismantled, and in 1966, the military completely left the base, taking all the useful stuff. The radioactive waste and trash, however, were left under the ice. They thought the tunnels would collapse, so no one would ever find it. But in 2016, scientists proved, with the glaciers melting in a few decades, everything will come up to the surface. And then the nuclear waste, diesel fuel, and all the other stuff left will end up in the water and the atmosphere. Well, we still have time, but let's hope they figure it out. As you know, almost all of life in Greenland revolves around the sea. We have about 500 fishing boats here. 500? Yes, exactly. There are some small boats, and there are bigger ones. And even bigger boats are further out. There are about 1,000 fishermen in the Ilulissat region. They mostly fish for halibut. 1,000. Yes, roughly 1,000. Let me remind you, Ilulissat has about 5,000 people, and 1,000 of them are fishermen. Imagine what would happen if, due to water pollution, every fifth person lost their job. Maybe, friends, you're not worried about the radioactive waste the Americans left in the ice. But what about a hydrogen bomb? Well, they didn't leave that one. They lost it. Starting in 1961, the US carried out Operation Chrome Dome. American bombers were constantly flying with hydrogen bombs. If a war had broken out, the US could have responded immediately and dropped them on the Soviet Union. So in 1968, one of those bombers was flying over Greenland. A fire broke out in the cockpit and the crew evacuated while the plane, carrying 4 hydrogen bombs, simply crashed on the island. The bombs broke apart on impact, contaminating the ice around the crash site with plutonium. At first, the Americans hoped it would all just sink and somehow disappear on its own. Honestly, the Americans too often assumed that things in Greenland would sort themselves out. But for some reason, Denmark was against it. So the US had to start an operation to remove the radioactive ice. They tried to get it done before the spring thaw, so nothing would get into the ocean. The problem was, they could only confirm debris from 3 bombs. As for the 4th, the Americans said it had completely broken apart, and there was nothing to look for. In November 2008, the BBC published a series of articles about the disaster. In these articles, researchers suggested that the 4th bomb simply hadn't been found. The Americans refused to comment, while the Danes did their own investigation, supporting the US official version. Who to trust is up to you. Still, there's a chance that somewhere under Greenland at the bottom of the ocean, a hydrogen bomb is sitting. So if you keep losing your keys, don't worry, it could be worse. At least it's not a bomb in the ocean. If you want to ask the US about what they are doing in Greenland, go to the American consulate. The consulate is in Nuuk, which is where I'll be going after Ilulissat. By the way, friends, look at the airport. Here's the parking. You get to the airport, find the entrance, and voila, we turn around. And 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, let's say we need just 20 steps to get to the gate. There isn't even a security check. And of course, everything here is relaxed and democratic. You can take off right away. Here comes a little plane. Some passengers are getting off now and others will board. Just 20 steps from the airport entrance to the boarding gate. Time to fly on. Here it is. You just enter the airport and go to your own plane. At the back, the seats are just like on a bus. As you can tell from this emblem, I'm near the US consulate in Nuuk, and this is probably least protected and the simplest American diplomatic mission in the world. Usually embassies or consulates are just like fortresses, fences, guards, no photos, especially American ones, because, you know, Americans don't always behave well, and there are many people who want to protest in some way. But here in Nuuk, there's nothing, no guards, just this tiny house. A single camera and total silence around, and it's on the edge of town. To be honest, I'm surprised. I thought that after recent events, after all these Trump's statements, which really angered the Greenlanders, there would at least be some extra security here. I expected maybe some protests or something going on here, but I don't see a single sign or poster. Literally no one cares about the American consulate. By the way, I heard these guys are moving anyway. They're expanding and will now be in a building in the city center. There you go, normal houses. Here is one too. Look, no signs, no posters at all. They could have put up something like "Hands off Greenland" or something like that. And here's the consulate, just a tiny red house, barely noticeable. You could drive past it and not even see it. This is a just a sign kind of stuff. Usually when you talk to people about America and ask them what they think of Donald Trump, their eyes fill with anger. They start insulting him, etc. But here everything is quiet, just a small, unremarkable building. And just like that, nobody's here. Despite all the problems, Greenlanders have a special regard for the Danish royal family. I talked about it with Galja Morol, Ola Jørgen's wife.
When the queen, or now the Danish king, comes to Greenland, they always go actually up north immediately. But they know every single person. They go and talk about whose aunt died last year. They would come and sit, drink a cup of tea. They will talk about the grandchildren. They know all subtleties. And that's why people love them. And they say if Greenland becomes independent tomorrow, we'll take one thing from Denmark, and that's Danish king, because they really love him. So that's the difference between how they see American let's say, American's president's son and how they see formerly the queen and now the king of Denmark.
The Danish king is more popular in Greenland than in Denmark.
People love him.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because they know how to talk to people. Yeah.
Behind me is the sculpture of Mother of the Sea, a goddess in Inuit mythology who rules over all sea creatures. Legend says that if people anger her, she tangles the fish in her hair, leaving fishermen with nothing. The catch simply won't come up. The only way to fix it is for a shaman in a trance to dive down to the goddess and comb her hair. That's what the sculpture shows. After that, Mother of the Sea releases all the fish, and the balance between nature and humans is restored. No wonder there's a monument like this in Greenland. Locals rely heavily on fishing. The average Greenlander eats about 87 kilo of seafood a year, and fish makes up 80 to 95% of exports. So taking care of the sea is nothing less than the key to survival here. Fresh catch is sold right on the streets, and then not only fish. They even sell whale meat right here. In general, whale meat isn't a problem here. You can buy it in a supermarket. Frozen or smoked meat is sold right on the street. For example, when a fisherman sells his catch in town, there's already a line of people who want to buy it. The situation with whales is rather complicated. The local bowhead whale is a baleen whale, with the longest baleen plates, up to 3.5 meters. Some of these giants can live over 200 years, unless they're hunted. In the past, whaling provided entire island communities with food, materials, and fuel, whale oil. Back then, bowhead whales nearly went extinct, and were listed in the Red Book. Today, they are no longer threatened by whaling, but some other whale species are still hunted. There's a quota set by the International Commission that allows a limited number of these animals to be hunted. But it's only granted if the quota is needed to feed indigenous people. In Greenland, whale meat isn't just for locals. It's also sold to tourists, for example. In 2022, around 4,200 small whales were killed here. That was the largest legal hunt of these animals in the world. I hope the locals will find other sources of food, and that tourists will admire the whales instead of trying them. Prices here are just crazy. Property is also extremely expensive.
So Ille, you see the new part of the city back there behind the mountain, close to the mountain. That's the area called Ringerput. There's a lot of new housing there. There you can buy apartments too, and a typical apartment in Nuuk costs 2.3 million, and it can cost up to 4 million or even more.
How big is it?
Maybe 80 square meters. That would cost maybe 2.5 million. It has become very expensive to live in Nuuk.
If you think renting is easier, you're wrong. Nuuk is a real European capital. Here it is nearly impossible to rent an apartment. It is even harder than in Berlin or Paris. Housing prices and rents keep going up. From 2016 to 23, the cost of apartments increased by 36%. Of course, there are municipal housing programs. You can rent a home from the government at a lower cost, but people have to wait 10 to 12 years to get an apartment. And that is despite the fact that in 2022, more than 100 these apartments were empty. They required major renovations, and the city simply did not have the funds to bring the apartments into proper condition. As a result, housing that could have brought around 4.5 million kroner a year to the city budget was left to the cockroaches. Last year, after a 5-year renovation, an international airport opened in Nuuk. More tourists started coming, which means more apartments will be rented out on Airbnb, making it even harder to find long-term housing. Well, at least the authorities started a housing reform. They promised that in 20 years new houses will be built, old ones repaired, and the quality of life will generally improve. Greenlanders will definitely be luckier in 2045. Unfortunately, they'll have to wait 20 years.
What's the difference in price between the municipal property and commercial?
A huge difference. Maybe you can get a decent apartment for maybe 7,000–8,000 kroner through the municipality. But if you can't do that, you have to go out and do on a private market. It will be maybe almost double the price. So maybe 12,000 kroner to rent an apartment from a private very expensive.
That's why people wait.
They have to wait, and a lot of people live together in apartments, and real estate is just very extremely expensive.
In 2025, 4,250 people are on the waiting list for municipal housing. It may not seem like a lot, but for an island with a population of 56,000, that's a huge number. Every year, this figure grows, and many people will have to wait more than 10 years. Listen, this might be interesting. Take a look. This is a new building, and not a single apartment has a glazed balcony. In Russia, even in the southern regions, people usually glaze their balconies, saying the climate is bad. Guys, the climate in Greenland is bad. The climate here is terrible, with strong winds, snow, and endless winter. And yet, the balconies are open here. They don't glaze them. Take note! Continuing with the housing topic, I want to show you an example of Greenlandic ingenuity. So friends, not I am going to show you a Greenlandic toilet. Here you are, sitting on this throne, sitting high up, so there's some space to drop down, so to say. Yeah, let's check it out. There's a little window. Just a second. A window, you can get some fresh air in. In general, everything looks nice. There's also light. But then you wonder, what happens in a storm? You're completely exposed. Around you, there's nothing. Just polar foxes peeking out of their dens. You'd be afraid a strong gust of wind could blow you away. Like Ellie's house in The Wizard of the Emerald Cottage. But here's the brilliant solution. These guys tied the toilet down with stones. With massive stones so the toilet won't fly away. 2 huge boulders keep this incredible toilet in place and protect it from Greenlandic winds. From now on, you feel protected, you feel safe, you can do everything you want in peace. Because you won't fly away. This is a brilliant idea. I went into Nuuk's shopping center. By the way, the only one in Greenland. The main store here is the supermarket. Let's take a look now at how much things cost and compare it to prices in other countries, like Denmark or Russia. I'm about to go into this shopping center. I'll take different products, and you'll see 3 prices on your screens. How much it costs here in Greenland, how much it costs in Denmark, and the price in Russia. If we can't find identical goods in Russia, we'll take something similar in quality, so we can get an idea of the price difference and see how much more expensive everything is here. Let's go. You'll see the prices in dollars on your screen, but I'll tell them in krona. Here we are. Let me think where to start. Okay, vegetables. Cauliflower costs, as far as I understand, 31 per package, per piece. Carrots are easier, washed. Looking good, 30 kroner a kilo. They're Danish carrots. Potatoes, I see different kinds of it. There's a lot to choose from. Let's see. For example, this one costs 35 kroner a kilo. A melon costs 25 kroner per piece. Tomatoes aren't looking good here. You can't find good tomatoes here, but there are some cherry tomatoes. I think they're Icelandic. Oh, no, Danish. Danish cherry tomatoes cost 3 kroner per kilogram. Apples are sold here by the kilogram. 1 kilogram costs 45 kroner. All right, here's a well-known one, Kinder Bueno. So, a standard pack costs 11.5 kroner. Just a regular pack of Kinder Bueno. A 120-gram pack of M&Ms costs 23 kroner. Kinder Surprise costs 14 kroner for a Kinder. They want 10 kroner for 6 cans of beer, for 6 cans of Carlsberg. A large can of Heineken, 1.5 liters costs 40 kroner. 2023 Chardonnay is 250 kroner a bottle. 2021 Shiraz Cabernet, also from Penfolds, costs 250 as well. It's time for me to head to my next stop in Greenland, Sisimiut. This is Christina Jonsson, a resident of Sisimiut, who showed me around the town and told me about some local problems.
Sometimes we are stuck in bad weather and we are very isolated. About 5 years ago, my youngest son was hit by a car. It was an awful accident. And he went to coma. He was flown to Iceland because the doctors here couldn't do anything for him. The plan was to go to Nuuk, but the weather in Nuuk was also awful. And I could not go with him on that plane. He was only 15 years old at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mother, I was very desperate to follow him. We didn't know whether he would survive, what would happen, because he was unconscious. I was in Denmark, I could go by train or something. Here, I couldn't do anything because of the situation. Yes. That's what I think is a hard part of, but it will not happen again, for sure. I love my life here in Greenland.
Just like in Nuuk, there's a cultural center here. Friends, and what's really surprising, and I didn't even film this, this cultural center has really good coffee. I got myself a cup of espresso, which costs 40 kroner. So yes, the prices are quite high, but the coffee turned out to be very good. So if you ever visit this wonderful town, whose name I still struggle to pronounce, and want to have a good cup of coffee, Sisimiut. So if you ever visit this town and want to have a good cup of coffee, go straight to the cultural center. There you'll get it. What else is interesting? People still come here by snowmobiles. Even though it's already spring, the snow has melted, but they're still riding snowmobiles.
Tomorrow, for example, you think that most of Greenlanders, they will vote?
We need to know under which circumstances our independence will be. Oh, we have to see this. And I have to be sure that the system is ready for it in Greenland. Also, if I get cancer or anything that can't be treated here in Greenland.
Okay, yeah.
What is my opportunities to get health care in Denmark? Or do I need to go to Iceland or Germany? Or where can they fix my problems? Because there's some things that we are not ready for yet. Okay. So of course we want independency. Of course we want to...
So this is the reality. All residents of Greenland have Danish passports, but they are not fully integrated into Danish society. The first reason for this is language. In most Greenlandic schools, children learn in Greenlandic, the local language. And the second language here is English. When you talk to people, you notice that older generations often speak only Greenlandic. School children already know some English and can usually hold a simple conversation. I'd say the level of English here is roughly similar to Russia. Teenagers generally know English at a certain level. Some better, some worse, but that's not the main point. What is important is that not everyone speaks Danish, and that creates a real problem. For example, if you finish school in Greenland and want to go to Denmark to continue your education, you're likely to face difficulties. First and foremost, because of the language barrier.
How old are you?
17.
17? Yeah. This is your school, no?
No, not in school anymore.
You finished the school, yeah? Okay, do you speak Danish?
No.
So you speak Greenlandic, yeah? And English?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't learn Danish in school.
Why?
I don't like it.
You don't like Danish?
Yeah.
But if you want to go to Denmark, for example, to university, you have to speak Danish, yeah?
I don't know. No English.
Okay, what are you going to do next?
Walk.
Where?
In the port that we walk for ships.
Ah, for ships.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to stay here?
Yeah. Always.
Okay, question. What do you think about Donald Trump?
He's an asshole.
And you? What do you think about Donald Trump?
No.
What do you think about his idea by Greenland?
That's not a good idea. Yeah. This is our line.
Greenlanders are making an effort to develop independently and even try to replace imports of essential goods, such as vegetables and fruit. I had the chance to talk to Pali Fleischer, who opened the first commercial greenhouse on the island, where he grows vegetables for sale.
This is my motivation wall. And I use AI and write greenery, greenhouses and warehouses and biogas digesters, and I write mountains and snow, trying to make it look like Greenland. And this is what I want to do. But the problem is the cash flow is too low yet. So maybe in the future I will have, hopefully, I can supply the whole country. My dream is to grow tomatoes, pepper bells, strawberries. But I didn't have the pictures of cucumber or eggplants or other stuff. But at the moment, that's what our dream is. Big dream. Especially in this cold country. Many people think it's not possible. But with the right equipment, it's very possible. I grow this just to learn. Because I have a big plans to start growing tomatoes in a couple years. I have two, but this one doesn't produce yet. There are two different types of varieties. The other one is like, because I heard they produce very good small tomatoes quickly, then I just grow it a couple weeks ago. And this one I already have, because my cousin sends me seeds from Sweden.
Well, let's try fresh Greenlandic salad.
Свежий салатик. Very good.
Good.
Do you have any support from the government? Maybe they provide any
Yes.
any help with?
This equipment I'm going to get this summer. It's from the government. I actually found the last year, for the first time ever, you can apply for a self-sufficiency subsidy. And this year last year we got 250,000 to buy new equipment, so I can grow 7,000. And this one will be arriving in maybe beginning of August. But the one I want from government, maybe I can get a price reduction for electricity price. Then I can use LED to grow some wines, like tomatoes, cucumbers. I can grow them all year around if I can get cheaper electricity. But at the moment, no problem growing lettuce with regular price.
Here's a wonderful strawberry that grew right here.
Very good.
That's cool. Everything is growing. A beautiful little greenhouse, even if it's not very big yet. The local scenery is breathtaking. Whales, gigantic glaciers, and colorful cozy houses. And you wouldn't guess that there's an epidemic of suicides here. Yes, it's really an epidemic, and I'll explain why. The global average suicide rate is 9 out of every 100,000 people per year. In Greenland, this rate rarely drops below 80. It's one of the highest in the world. You could try to explain it by the harsh living conditions or the lack of daylight. But according to statistics, suicides happen more often in summer. Some might say that the problem is in the accessibility of firearms. Many people keep hunting rifles at home, but studies show that hanging is much more common. Why is it happening? Most likely, it's the result of Danish experiments I've mentioned earlier. People began killing themselves on a large scale in the 1960s, which was also the peak of alcoholism. About 65% of people born between 1965 and 1995 had problems with alcohol in their families. Historians and sociologists believe that the active imposition of Danish identity on Greenlanders led to the loss of their own. They felt neither European nor like a distinct people. Many felt as if they were living in a disturbing social experiment and had no control over their own lives. And in many ways, that was true. Almost every Greenlander knows someone who killed themselves. And when something occurs so often, it starts to feel normal. And in moments of despair, many follow the example of their friends. Suicide becomes contagious, which is why the word epidemic fits so well. I know you came here to watch a video about Greenland, but I have to say this. If you feel bad, don't hesitate to ask for help. We keep exploring Greenlandic yards. Come on, explain me. How is all this different from Russia? There's no difference. Same playgrounds. Same floods. Same children playing in a paddle. Everything here is absolutely the same. Russia should be the one trying to claim Greenland. The island has already developed very Russian infrastructure. Children are playing with stones. Even our 5-story building is finally here. Look, the children play the same games we did. And there's always that one guy getting the ball in the ass. Miss? Of course, it's always important to remember what happens to our waste. So, how is this problem handled in Greenland? That black building behind me is the new waste incineration plant. They built it because the old one couldn't keep up. We will also look at the old one. At this new plant, mixed waste is pressed into plastic briquettes, kind of like the ones they use to store hay in Iceland, but here they store trash in them. Then the briquettes with pressed trash go into the furnace, and that's all. And all of this gets turned into energy. This kind of technology is common in many Scandinavian countries like Sweden. Sweden is very famous for it. But there's one big problem. When your city's economy, including, for example, heating and electricity, depends on burning waste, it's hard to come off its waste dependency because you constantly need new waste. So you can't start sorting your trash or building recycling plants because the director of this incineration plant, in which millions of euros were invested, will come to you and say, "Dude, what are you doing? What plastic are you planning to separate? I need to burn trash so people can have electricity in their homes?" So forget what you wanted to do. I just end up burning all the waste myself. Solutions like this are, of course, better than just dumping garbage in the ground. But they have long-term consequences. I don't think that responsible waste sorting and recycling will take place here in the next 10 years. This is how the city landfill looks like. Everything is just dumped here, brought in bags. Some trash is sorted. As far as I understand, they take out what can be sent to Denmark for recycling. But that's very little, mostly metal. Electronics, toxic liquids, oils, paint and other hazardous waste. Everything else just sits here. Later, a truck comes and brings all of it to the waste incineration plant. By the way, this is the old plant. Its capacity isn't enough anymore, so they built a new one. Notice the landfill isn't fenced at all. People just come and dump whatever they want, uncontrolled. No one monitors if someone throws away a battery or other hazardous materials. In all this trash, it's impossible to find and sort out the hazardous waste. There's also a little shed at the landfill where you can leave good things you don't need anymore. Like this washing machine, which is supposed to work. I see clothes, toys, a helmet, some dishes. So if you have stuff you don't want, you can leave it there, and maybe someone else will need it.
What do you love most about Greenland?
Everything.
If you ask me, I would just say that I love that people are still humans. And they look at you and not who you are, what your job is. They look at you as a human.
Greenland is the biggest island in the world. It feels like it has been forgotten throughout history. This is a place where atomic bombs and radioactive waste were lost. Terrifying experiments were carried out, and the needs of people were simply ignored. Now Trump has drawn attention to the island just to profit from it. Perhaps attention is exactly what Greenlanders need, and its crucial role for the planet. And most importantly, they'll see this beauty and the people's desire for independence. These are the island's treasures, and they're worth way more than any metals. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I've got many more trips coming, and I'll tell you everything about them.
Service to New York Kennedy Airport. All confirmed passengers should now be boarding at gate number D.